Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Fran, I'm from Venezuela, and today we're going to be watching a video called What Did the British Ever Do for Us? Scientifically. So it sounds a little mean and a little sort of like aggressive when you think about it like that, but let's check it out and comment, like, subscribe, and start.
What did the British, ever do for us scientifically?
Yes, great.
Nowadays, our education system regards the British as brutal colonists who enslaved populations, subjugated the world. Out of roughly 200 countries in the world today, the Brits colonised, settled or invaded about 90% of them, which I think is fairly impressive, or at least I think the Romans would think it was impressive.
It is impressive.
Would we have been better off without those bastard Brits? Now,
Probably
as it
not.
happens, they may have some redeeming features.
Yes.
Look at their scientific contribution at least. Now, this is a slightly different video to normal, and I'm going to talk about the British scientific and technological achievements and inventions, even though I could mention trivial things like the British invention of some of the best countries in the world, like Australia, Canada, Singapore, New Zealand, America. Well, maybe not invented, but they were certainly highly influenced. Or even the only decent country in the Middle East, which is Israel, courtesy of Mr. Balfour, and many other countries that have a great deal to be proud of, such as Malaya, South Africa, Fiji, Kenya, Botswana, Sri Lanka.
He just keeps naming like
India,
more and more countries with British influence.
British creations. But we're a science channel, and we're going to look at science. Now, the list is long.
Grabbing a paper
of scientific achievements, and I'm only going to look at the really big ones and some of the important ones.
Because I'm guessing it's a very long list.
Let's start with transport and engines. So the British invented the railways, steel tracks, railway locomotives. In fact, wherever the British went, railways followed. So they put in railways in Germany, India, South America.
All over, yes.
And of course, everybody copied that. Then we have the modern bicycle, initially called the Rover Safety Bicycle, apparently. Chain drive, caster steering, and relatively small wheels, invented by the Rover Company. In fact,
it's so funny how it's
the bicycle
like the front wheel is huge.
And yes, it's the same company.
Oh, like Land Rover.
Now, the British obviously,
which I'm guessing is also British.
Engines, which was the steam engine, and that broke us free from back-breaking animal and human-powered devices. Now, while the British were inventing the steam engine, they of course had to invent the piston, and more importantly, the piston ring.
I know this is an engineering thing, but I have no idea what those things are.
Technological invention, which is even now being developed further. And the piston ring is the basis for petrol engines and diesel engines. In fact,
Actually,
every engine.
That's what I was.
No Brits.
I thought it had something to do with this.
Next, they invented the first engine-powered ships, obviously steam-powered.
Yes, we know that they were very good at naval
steel ships. The steam turbine, initially for powering ships, but now it powers the generators in every coal electricity generating plant and every nuclear generating plant. So that's about 50% of all the electricity that's generated today, all courtesy of Mr. Parsons. Then we have the jet engine. Yes, the Germans independently invented it in the Second World War.
Yeah, I was going to say like
the
our
turboprop engine invented by the Brits, the first turboprop aircraft. So if you don't fly an airplane powered by a jet engine, which was largely due to the Brits, it's a turboprop airplane which was invented by the Brits. And of course, the turboprop is the basis of the gas turbine, which is used to generate another 20% of the world's electricity. We also have the modern car layout, front drive, transverse engine, independent suspension, CV joints on the front wheels. Before that, companies tried all sorts of arrangements. So, for example, the Germans famously had the engine and everything at the back, but since 1959, most cars use the Mini Minor equivalent. Ever been on a vehicle that uses steel wheels? Pretty uncomfortable. But don't worry, the Brits invented the pneumatic tyre. So it looks like the British have invented pretty much everything that runs on the road.
Yes, basically.
They didn't invent the road, that's just about it.
But methods of transport.
Well, actually they did. Tarmac roads, or tarmacadam, was invented by a Scot
A
and a
Welsh.
Welshman. Then we have steel bridges. And here's a very interesting
Like
one.
bridges
the modern
or steel
traffic
bridges,
roundabout
particularly?
in the 1960s. Now, you might think that roundabouts
First
have been around
roundabout.
since way before the 1960s.
Yeah,
but
1909.
the Brits had the inspired idea of changing the rules for the roundabout. In other words, yield to enter, which massively increases
Yes.
the efficiency of the roundabout.
Also,
We
like,
have
yeah,
the
modern roundabouts.
cat's eye reflector. Caterpillar tracks,
What is
which the
that?
Brits invented just before they invented the tank. So
Oh my
there's much
God.
more we could talk about in terms of transport technology, but we must move on to
That's like sort of
other
more media use, I
industrial
think.
and technological stuff. Now, of course, Britain famously started the Industrial Revolution in the 18th
Yes.
and 19th century, and it's debated why it started in the United Kingdom, but clearly there was something special going on that made that spark. And of course, it started in the textile and agricultural industry. In the textiles, they invented the flying shuttle,
textile.
powered looms, the spinning mill for making threads. In fact,
Oh,
if you didn't have
the
the
spinning
Brits,
wheel.
you don't have the very fine modern clothings which we have now, which is also incredibly cheap compared with what it used to be. In the agricultural
It's true.
industries, there are all sorts of mechanical devices like the mechanical seed drill, the haymaking threshing machine, but also really
Haymaking
important things like
machine. What
phosphate
is that?
fertilizer production, selective breeding. But that's just the
Oh,
beginning
so
of the
yeah, so it's like
industrial revolution.
fertilizer.
If you're going to have an industrial revolution, you need to big build buildings. And so the British gave us Portland cement, a revolutionary
gonna
type
say,
of
like,
cement.
I don't know, very
Where
tall
would we be
buildings?
without it? Then we have things like steel boring machines, which led to the modern lathe, which is ubiquitous in metal cutting. Hyper-accurate machines for measuring things, the micrometer, for instance. You cannot have modern engineering unless you
I'm
have
guessing this guy's an engineer
high-performing
because
methods
there's a
for
lot of
measuring things. We have stainless
things
steel,
having to do with
the production
engineering.
of polyethylene, very famous plastic used in just about everything. The steel
true.
hammer for
Polyethylene, basically
forging
plastic, so- oh
steel,
my God.
making it much stronger.
That looks scary.
Bessemer steel process, the first
This
mass production
looks
of steel,
scary.
effectively, and then the mass production of
And they don't have any
brass
protective,
using
like,
the now
gear.
ubiquitous, virtually tin flotation method. All right, let's go a little bit electrical. So the first long-distance communication cables were invented by the Brits.
Oh, the ones that go
cable.
like
This
underneath
was
the
used for
ocean.
underwater cables to link the UK to America and other places. The
Oh,
first
yeah.
intercontinental communication, the birth
I think
of the internet in a
like
sense.
precursors to
It was
the
the
internet.
first
I think they
time
still use
that
the
we
same
could
lines.
communicate all around the world. The telephone. Alexander Graham Bell was a Scotsman. The television, liquid crystal, cavity magnetron. You've
Oh,
never heard of
LCD.
the cavity? It's in your microwave.
Never
But
heard of
probably
it.
More importantly, the first radars, to a large extent, used the cavity magnetron, which was a
Oh,
revolution.
they use it in radars
Then
and
if
now
we
it's
go
in
a little bit
microwaves.
medical, we've got CAT scanners,
Oh, a
ultrasound
CT.
scanners, the
Oh,
first town to have chlorinated water. How about
Wow,
the first
very
electronic
important.
programmable computer to crack German codes in the Second World War?
oh yeah, like World War II.
Accurate navigation using highly accurate clocks, the chronometers, and
Clocks?
the first workable atomic clock. Then we have
I don't know what's an
web,
atomic
a
clock.
gas stove, tin cans,
Tin
and
cans.
a really big one. I know you've been wondering where I get to this one. An alarm clock that
Oh,
makes tea.
I've never
I've got
seen
about
one of those
many,
in my
many more
life.
things, but
I've never knew
let's
of
go on to
their
fundamental
existence.
science, the stuff that all other science and technology actually depends upon. But before we do that, maybe
I
just
have to
like
say-
and subscribe.
All of those,
How about
those things you
the
mentioned,
discovery
they were pretty
of the
important.
proton, neutron, and electron, the three
Okay.
building blocks of
Of like everything.
frankly just about everything,
Yeah.
all discovered by Brits. And the Brits also discovered the opposite of matter, which is antimatter. by
Antimatter?
Paul Dirac. And more recently, the last particle in the standard physics model of just about everything, the Higgs boson, which was proposed by Peter Biggs.
No idea. Oh,
Now,
he's
let's
a particle.
go a little bit bigger,
Okay.
but
Used in
not a great
physics.
deal bigger. The atom, the model of the atom with a hard nucleus with the electrons flying around, was essentially discovered by the British.
Yeah, I
And
was
I'm
going to say
being
not
a little bit loose there
invented,
because there's a
discovered.
famous New Zealander involved with this. But frankly,
Oh,
in those
okay.
days, Kiwis were basically Brits. What about
Okay, so
biology?
instead of cheating.
Well, in my view, the two biggest advances in biology were both discovered by Brits. The first one is Charles Darwin's theory
Of
of
course,
evolution.
Charles Darwin. Of
And
course,
then
he
you
was
have
British.
the discovery of the structure of DNA at
Oh, DNA
Cambridge
was also
University.
discovered by
Fundamental
British
molecular
scientists.
biology, of which the whole DNA revolution has
Everything,
been based
yes.
on. And yes, I know Watson was an American and Wilkins was a Kiwi.
Also, not all of
Anyway, of
them were
course, the discovery
British.
of the structure meant this explosion in growth of the whole DNA industry, effectively, such as DNA fingerprinting, now invented by the
Oh my
Brits.
God, that's
Now let's go back
1980s?
to
Why
more
did I think that
basic,
was like
very fundamental,
way
possibly
older?
more important medicine. We have antiseptics,
Oh yeah, Lister,
antibiotics,
of course.
vaccines,
Penicillin.
all three invented by Brits. But let's go back to physics now. So we have Newton's laws of motion, Newton's laws of gravity.
Way back, yes.
Where would we be without Sir Isaac Newton? We essentially couldn't predict anything. Back on
I know he's
to
very
the
important,
physics,
but I
the
don't
laws of
understand
optics
physics.
and the way that radio waves travel, light, the laws of electromagnetic propagation,
Okay. So how
and
does
signals
light
and
work in
wires,
general, probably?
Scotsman James Clerk Maxwell's. You don't
A lot
have
of
any
Scottish
mobile phones or
scientists.
computers or communication cables without Maxwell. And then we have electromagnetic induction from
Oh,
Michael
like the
Faraday's.
Faraday things
If
that
you
you
don't
use in high
understand
school.
magnetic induction, there are no electric motors, there's no electric generators.
I think there's a
Basically,
Faraday's
the whole
like
backbone of the electricity system,
like a
you owe
scientific
it to
instrument
the
they used
Brits.
in labs in high school.
Or in mathematics,
Promise
and there are a
related.
lot here, so I'm going to pick the really big one, which is the invention of calculus, yes. There was another guy called Leibniz
Calculus.
who also
So that's
invented
what we
it at the
all
same
like
time, but
our
essentially
troubles in high
Newtonian
school. Math.
calculus is at the basis of a huge amount of advanced science of engineering. It's as fundamental as algebra and arithmetic.
Yeah.
Now, this list is not complete.
Pretty hated
There are literally
all
a
over the
zillion
world.
other things that the Brits have contributed to. Actually, there is just one more.
Oh my God.
Flushing
Okay.
loo.
Ah.
Now, obviously, much of what those British scientists did was based on other scientists from lots of other countries, and the Brits
Of
were just
course.
part of this
Of
magnificent
like a larger
thing which we
team.
call Western civilization. Of course, there were French and there were Germans, and the scientific development and advancement then spread to the United States and now to the Far East. But the contribution of the Brits were utterly fundamental on so many levels. Now, without those advancements, our lives
wouldn't be
would
here today.
Short, harsh, and frankly, just bloody horrible.
Yeah,
The
it's
world's
true.
population would still be about 1 billion, which is what it was in about 1800, rather than the roughly 8 billion that it is today without that wonderful science and technology. Now, if you add up all the bad things that the Brits may have done, you know, the Amritsar massacre, the Bengal famine, and
Oh my God,
all the
that's
other bad
terrible.
things that happened, albeit only occasionally considering the attitudes of the times. But even if you add all those up, it's not a drop in the bucket compared with what has been achieved and the lives that they've saved.
Well, it's
How many
both.
lives, how many babies, children, were saved by antibiotics and antiseptics, clean water, or the uses of electricity, communications and transport? Famines are effectively a thing of the past because, well, for one reason, we can ship food around from one place to
Well,
another.
I don't think that's like
Very,
completely
very
eradicated
easily.
all over the
Now,
world.
look, it turns out that I was born in England, and even though I'm an Aussie, so I am biased. But I don't think it makes sense to be proud of what
biased.
your ancestors did or were, unless there's some evidence that you carry on those ideas, values, and traditions. But even if you don't measure up to those ancestors or other people's ancestors, it's just bad form not to appreciate what those people did for us. The contribution of the Brits was truly incredible, and we should all be grateful that they came along and did more than virtually any other group to pull humanity out of the appalling, difficult lives that existed before the 1800s.
I love the
So,
fact
do you
that
think the
the
ledger
1800s
for
is
those
like the
bastard Brits is it
midpoint.
positive or negative?
Okay, so this was a really interesting video. Their contributions to basically modern day life, like modern life as we know it. It wouldn't have come to be if not for the British. A lot of these inventions came from just a lot of curiosity. I think that's probably like a lot, if not all scientists are very curious. So it came from a place of curiosity and probably because they wanted to make the world a better place. This was really interesting and I really like this and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do and I'll see you soon. Bye!